Good afternoon, Alan Vandenberg here, another episode of EQ for You, episode number 39. Today's episode is Preventing Low EQ Behavior, plus we have a special guest as far as on the EQ IQ Music Grow. So we're operating off of the idea that 75% of a person or its team's success is not their IQ. If you've not done so, pick up a copy of my book, EQ Killed the Radio Star. It looks something like this. Publisher said the best time to launch a book was during a pandemic, and that is absolutely not true. So you can find this, the book, EQ Killed the Radio Star, How Emotional Intelligence Can Crush or Crash Your Organization. You can find that at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or alanvandenberg.com. Today we're coming to you from Bentonville, Arkansas, right here on the square downtown. Walton's First Five and Dime is actually kind of behind me. They're doing some construction, so we'll see how that goes. And so on to the segment called EQ and IQ Music Row, where we discuss artists in my record, CD, tape, audio file, and I don't have any tapes anymore, through the lens of an EQ and IQ perspective. So today I want to introduce you to one of my top guitar players of all time. His name is Larry Carlton. He began playing guitar at age 6. He started as a studio musician in California, electric and acoustic guitar, playing studios in California in the 70s, recording many styles and genres of music, pop, rock, jazz, R&B, soul, country. He was a studio guy, right? Larry Carlton has appeared on thousands of recordings and hundreds of albums. Some of the names are Steely Dan, Linda Ronstadt, Ray Charles, Michael Jackson, Off the Wall record, Sammy Davis Jr., Dolly Parton. So when you hear 9 to 5, Dolly Parton, that is Larry Carlton playing guitar on that song. Chet Atkins, Clint Black, Neil Diamond, Barbra Streisand, and even one of my favorites, the Partridge Family, if you remember those. He also appeared on many television and movie songs. He's played on over 100 gold records, which is insane. A multi-Grammy award winner. One of those Grammys, it was for an instrumental he did on the cover, for a cover of the Doobie Brothers classic Minute by Minute. He has 28 solo albums, which is insane, and a lot of other albums along with some of the other bands he's played in, like Foreplay and Smooth Jazz. So you've heard of him, but you probably didn't know you had. So the album that I'm going to, or the CD I'm going to point you to today is Larry Carlton, Alone But Never Alone. So I'll put a link to one of my favorite songs on this classic jazz album from the 80s from Larry Carlton. All right, so Larry Carlton, as far as EQ and IQ, he's one of the best guitar players in the world. And for his collaboration and ability to just play all kinds of different styles of music with lots of different people, he gets a 5 and a 5. So there you go, EQ, IQ Music Row for today. So today's episode, Preventing Low EQ Behavior. If it's true that 75% of our success is our EQ behaviors, then how do we prevent low EQ behavior? What are some of the warning signs? I'm often asked, Alan, I can't be perfect all the time. I'm going to slip up. I'm not going to be perfect in my EQ skills. And this is absolutely true. So what can I do, or what can we all do to look for warning signs? So first off, let me define some EQ behaviors that are absolutely inexcusable and not, they're basically inexcusable. So EQ behaviors like harassment, bullying, yelling, stealing from the company. I often wonder what these people are doing when they steal from the company, what their self-talk is before they actually continue to steal from companies. It's just crazy. Low EQ behavior. What were they thinking, right? Well, they weren't, right? Or maybe they just didn't care. For instance, did you take the harassment training? Yes. Then why did you talk or grab that person that way? A true story, they would say, and they did say, well, I just couldn't help myself. And I'm like, well, now you have to go home and tell your family that you no longer have a job because you harassed somebody. So this is not an IQ issue. They took the training, but their EQ behavior cost them their job and their reputation. And so let's move on to some other behaviors that we really can be aware of, and we can start looking at signals. So behaviors such as raising your voice, being short with others, talking over other people, being irritated at coworkers, not listening, being negative, having a victim mentality, losing our temper. All of these are EQ behaviors that are preventable, and we can do some things to help us to think about when these low EQ behaviors could actually happen. So we can start doing things to kind of prevent that. So first, understand that we have to own every behavior we do. We have to own every behavior we do because it's the only thing we have control over. We don't have full control over anybody else's behavior but our own. So no one made us do that. So we chose to do that low EQ behavior. So a few years back, it's been now 7 to 8 years ago, I was actually asked to go for the company that I was working for at the time over to Asia and China and do some EQ training for the team that was in Beijing and down south in Guangzhou as well. So I can't remember how long the flight was, but I do remember, and I've been to Europe before, and so I know about the long flights and different things, but China was completely different. I think it was a 13-hour flight that we took from Detroit, Michigan to Beijing, China. It was a crazy, crazy long flight. And I was just so tired when I got off the plane, and of course there were things that we were doing with the team over there, and I was just really, really tired. And of course it was my day to get up and do the EQ training for the team. And as I did that, I got up, and of course I was ready, I was prepared. I'd done this presentation I would say hundreds of times, which is probably true. But for some reason on this one particular incident, there was one thing I had forgot when I was presenting to China, our team in China, and that is I needed an interpreter. And so I began talking, and as I began doing my normal presentation, like 30 seconds into it, my boss actually said, "Hey, Alan, you're gonna have to slow down because the interpreter needs time to kind of process and communicate." And I looked over and I said, "I know." I wasn't yelling, I wasn't mad, but I was just like, I knew at that time that I was kind of tired and kind of irritated. And I said, "I know." And as soon as I said, I thought, here I am teaching low EQ or EQ, and I'm doing a low EQ behavior by telling my boss, "I know." And I felt so bad. And honestly, to be real honest with you, my self-talk after that began to start thinking, why did you do that, Al? And I'm in the middle of presenting. And I knew that I shouldn't have done that. And I knew I could have prevented that. I was so tired. And so luckily for me, that my relationship with my boss was so good that she understood. She said, no big deal, we got it. But I will tell you, that was one of the worst performances I've ever done of the EQ presentation. And what is interesting is I actually did it again 2 days later, and it was great. It was perfect. I had the interpreter. It was wonderful. But I think I was just really tired. To say I wasn't nervous, I'd be lying to you probably a little bit, because it was China, and I had never really done an interpreter before. So that's on me. I own my EQ behavior, right? And so I own that, and I did own it. I did ask for, and I apologized, and everything was fine. And it wasn't any big deal. Most people probably didn't even notice it, but I did. I knew it. I knew it for me. So here are some of my top 5 tips for preventing low EQ behavior. So number 1, get proper sleep. Being tired can significantly impact your EQ skills. Things like patience, which is what happened to me in China. Things like being irritated, which is what happened to me in China. I was just tired. So get proper sleep. Number 2, understand your stress level and the pressure that you're under. What is going on at work? What is going on in your life? Overcommitting. These are things that we do to ourselves that cause us to be stressed, and then our behavior becomes these low EQ behaviors. Number 3, listen to learn. It often can keep you from saying things that are low EQ behavior. If we just take a second to listen to learn first, rather than just say something. And then the last one is building relationships. Relationship is like a T account in accounting. Every interaction we have with a person is either positive deposits or negative withdrawals. So build your relationships, because we know we're not going to be perfect. we know we're gonna have low EQ behaviors. And when we do, if we built up the relationship in a healthy relationship, we can ask for that forgiveness. People will be understanding, and the relationship will not be affected by our low EQ behavior. And again, you know which one specifically I'm talking about. So we own our EQ behaviors, both good or bad, and we can prevent a lot of the low EQ behaviors that we do by taking these 4 recommendations and steps that I try to do myself, and I'm recommending to you as well. All right, hopefully this was helpful. Leave it with these 3 things. Find what you do in life and do that to the best of your ability. Don't allow anyone or anything to steal your joy and your happiness. And number 3, live life to the fullest, because nothing is guaranteed. Go check out Larry Carlton. Continue to grow our EQ skills. We know we're gonna make mistakes, but let's continue to work on them. I certainly will. Hopefully you will as well. I encourage you to do that. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Signing off from Bentonville, Arkansas. Talk to you soon. Bye.